Very excited to be chatting with you today and two of our special partners here, Justin Olson, Chief Information Officer at Utah Community Credit Union, and Ron Sensi, EVP of Sales and Lending at Elements Financial Credit Union. These guys have been with us along on our journey, building out what Nima just talked about. Really excited for the conversation today. So welcome, guys.
Hello.
I'll kick it off over to you, Justin. Both of you have been leaders at prominent credit unions now for many decades and have witnessed many evolutions of providing financial services to your members. How would you characterize the existing phase that we're in right now? And when you play out where this goes 10 years from now with your credit union, what does that look like?
Thanks, Alden. I think it's a great question about the evolution of service delivery and how there's been a major shift in investment by financial institutions to the digital, to the technology, and to automation and better experiences. And I think that's really the phase we're in right now. I think it's a continuum. I think we're going to continue to see that build momentum and only get better and more automated and see more emphasis in this area and be very critical for credit unions to execute on this type of investment. I think in 10 years from now, who knows, but I think it'll definitely be continuing to go that direction.
Building on that, where do you feel like we've made the greatest progress in some of that digital service and automation, and where do you think are the next major phases of innovation?
It's a great question. I think that really we started to do some things in the lending space, in particular with automating some of the decisioning and the underwriting. And I think that's going to become more and more important as we move forward, focusing on not just what automating that decision looks like, but what about automating the steps after the decision is made all the way to funding and having someone finish end to end from starting their application and experience online to finishing it online and really never needing to pick up a call and talk to someone. And I think that's where it's heading.
I think so too, and I think with the advancements in not just technology, but the data that we now have access to on members, and the use of translating into that of verifications of identity and income and employment, I think that future is just around the corner. Ron, I want to turn it over to you, get your opinion both on how you would characterize the phase that we're in right now and how you see that playing out over the next 10 years.
Yeah, the phase that I would say that we're in is one of maximizing the member experience or the experience for our consumer. Experience has become more or as important as product, as important as pricing, and figuring ways to automate it and have a unified experience where it's not disjointed, not a mortgage experience, not a consumer lending experience, not a opening up a deposit account experience, but combining all that where it's really one experience and you can move seamlessly between products. And to Justin's point, I mean, there's automation that could be incorporated in there, and down the road, I would envision that if somebody's in for a mortgage, that they're offered multiple products, potentially pre-approved within the application experience. And that's what we're striving for is to be able to provide a seamless one-stop app where consumers are presented with, all of the options up front without having to do all the redundancy it takes to apply for multiple products.
I think that's dead on. I mean, now that we have all that consumer information and it's in one platform, there is no need for multiple entry or multiple calls out to the same systems. It can all be centralized in one place. And I think what gets me really excited about that as well is kind of, as you were putting it, Ron, putting that member at the center of the experience and having our technology work for them, showing them all of the things that they're pre-qualified for, all of the things they can access without them needing to hunt and peck in each individual product line. Kind of building on both of what you've said, obviously the two of you have gone through major digital transformations over the past couple years. What is that process like of building a case internally for that? Obviously, you have line of business leads who are incentivized about driving efficiencies within a specific product, and you've got folks who are responsible for different channels. What was it like building the case, presenting to the board, getting this initiative signed off and live over the past couple of years? Ron, I'll keep it with you on this one.
It was a relatively easy experience from my perspective because the solution was so compelling. So, especially on the mortgage side, it's the most cumbersome application process out of all the loans. It just requires a lot of documentation. And until we switched over to Blend, we were doing it the old-fashioned way that required a lot of paper. And once our internal stakeholders saw and our board saw that there was a tremendous amount of efficiency and that it would not only increase our ability to do loans quicker and more efficient and at less cost, but it would have the effect of really increasing that member experience as well. Our members that had applied for mortgage years ago have commented how so much has changed and how easy the process is today.
Justin, how much of that is similar or different from your situation at UCCU?
It's so similar. I'd just echo what Ron said. I think for us, where it started was actually looking at what we had and admitting that it wasn't where we wanted to be, but more cleanly articulating why. Where was it we wanted to be, and starting to look at how we are going to formulate a solution to that problem. And really what Ron mentioned earlier in the question before this one about the experience. How do we make sure, experience really is king, and how are we going to make sure that we're staying on top of being fast, easy, and safe to work with? So fast and easy was really a big part of what we're looking at. And by that, like Ron said, efficiency and just that simple end user experience. It started to become really easy as we talked to other executives in the group. So our chief lending officer, Jeff Myers, had a great vision for where he wanted to see things be. And that was a shared vision with several of us. And so it really started to make sense when we looked at Blend, at the experience they were enabling for mortgage. And now, of course, we're building on that with consumer loans and deposit account opening. But it really started with just that, looking at it and saying, hey, this isn't really as good as it should or could be. And what are we going to do to make this better?
Totally makes sense. Ron, I want to kind of double down on one of the things that you said, which is, in many cases these days, the member experience is almost as important, in some cases even more important than price. Especially given everything that's happened in the past 6 months, how do you think about how you have had to evolve and accommodate providing that level of service or even a higher level of service, given the lack or the relative slowdown of in-branch experiences?
Yeah, what's a challenge? For us, the most important thing was to effectively make sure we were continuing to effectively communicate, with all of our members. With our branches, some of them being closed, some of them limited hours, as well as our workforce working remotely. We really had to step it up in terms of making sure we were reaching out, utilizing all the means possible, social media, email, just reaching out, even as simple as calling many of our members. Overall, we wanted to make sure that we were very transparent during this period. There's a lot going on, a lot changing very quickly. So that transparency and making sure that they knew that we were here and available and willing to help them was very important to us.
Do you think that what has happened over the past 6 months is solidifying some sort of permanent change to the way that you do business with your members? And in what ways has that solidified something for the good, or which ways do you think we still don't know yet?
I think that's evolving. Will things go back to normal? I don't think anybody really believes things will go back to normal. I mean, there are going to be changing work habits in terms of probably more people working from home instead of coming into the office. Branches probably won't be as busy as they historically have. People have gotten used to, during this period, using technology that maybe they hadn't utilized before and weren't comfortable with, and now have really had to force themselves to do so. I think it's too early to tell, but I think the digital experience is certainly going to be very important, not only in terms of you offering your products and services, but how you reach out and communicate with your members going forward.
Building on that a little bit, how do you think about continuing to provide some sort of human touch in a world where branches maybe are less prominent? Justin, I'll kick it back to you for this one.
Yeah, I think as Ron was talking, actually, I was thinking about that very thing I think the pandemic has showed us that, we need to have strong digital capabilities, but also the ability to be contextual through that digital experience to the needs of that specific user. And I think it's certainly something we have to be better about, craftier manipulations of data and processes beneath the surface, so that on the surface, people are seeing what's most important to them and pathways to accomplish the task they're there to take care of at that time, and making sure those things are really just within a tap or two on a smartphone, and not having to dig around to find what they're looking for. So surfacing things that are contextual to their need at that moment is really a critical thing.
I think so too. And if I look at how digital services, and in particular outside of financial services themselves, have evolved, it really is that sort of personalized and instantaneous proactive communication with the end user. And I can't help but think that that's the next wave of transformation as well in financial services. I know, given the roles that both of you have in credit unions, the notion of maintaining and growing member loyalty is always top of mind. If you can acquire somebody once and continue to nurture and provide a great relationship with them over time, obviously it benefits them, benefits your financial institution. What do you think are some of the key levers to continuing to build loyalty, and maybe even in the broader question of how are you thinking about differentiating yourself in this next wave of where credit unions are going? Ron, I'll kick that one to you.
We build loyalty primarily through providing trusted advice, and following up on that with solutions and products. When you look at elements, one of our core principles is financial wellness, and not unique in the credit union space, but we have a very well developed and extensive financial curriculum. And, we deliver this curriculum to over 100 employers throughout Indiana. And, one of the big evolutions during this period has been how do you deliver that? Because, our members have come to expect that, and that helps us build trust and loyalty, and ultimately, hopefully, they choose us as their financial partner. So we've had to really redesign how we do that, because we were doing them in person, and we've gone to digital solutions which allow us to now reach them digitally, through webinars, through interactions, through Microsoft Teams and other various softwares. But that interaction, when they're dealing with us one-on-one, really is a differentiator and really builds that trust and loyalty.
Obviously, the past couple months have accelerated, any plans that you would have had previously of moving some of those services digitally. I'm sure not everything works perfectly out of the gate. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, what has worked when it comes to providing that advisory role or that financial wellness, and what maybe still hasn't been figured out yet.
The challenge for us is we were really planning on rolling out a digital interactive platform next year. So we had to move that all up. And the initial challenge was reliability, making sure that it would work, that we had the bandwidth necessary, for us to do these webinars from people's homes. But then also it got to how do we interact? Because we didn't want it to just be a lecture. And, we wanted interaction. We wanted people to ask questions. And with some of the solutions we had, it was pretty difficult. We're planning on rolling out in the next couple of weeks a solution that will allow for that interaction. And it'll also allow interaction within the parties presenting the webinar and the workshops, as well as with the participants. So very excited about that. And we're about a year ahead of where we thought we would be with that.
Very cool. Justin, kind of related to what Ron was touching on, for a number of us, obviously our roadmaps have shifted over the past 6 months, and we've had to pull in things that maybe we were planning for the back half of 2020 or 2021. Blend certainly did this by pulling forth its e-closing solution earlier on than we had originally planned. I'm curious, from your point of view, what priorities or what projects were pulled forward or accelerated given everything that's happened in the past few months?
Definitely our project with Blend, the overhaul of our online point of sale layer where people are applying for accounts and loans online. When we closed our branches for a time earlier this spring, it really put a lot of pressure on those digital capabilities. And so that became a really key priority for us to get those live as quickly as we possibly could. And so like Ron said, being digital, those capabilities became really critical.
When you think of how you define success for that sort of digital transformation, what are the one or two things that you measure yourself against?
On the digital side, I think we want to really close.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alden.
I was just agreeing with your point, Justin. How would you measure success in one of these digital transformations?
Yeah, I think it's all about outcomes, right? So we have some very specific KPIs that we had in mind going into a project with Blend, the outcomes we were wanting to see, especially around turnaround times from application to decision and application to funding. Speed of service is really critical, I think, and something that we're hyper-focused on this year, especially in digital. Because if someone applies for something online, their experience, especially outside of financial services, is that instant gratification of knowing that your delivery is on its way. So speed of service became really important, but also pull through, reducing abandonment, kind of that look to book, and really helping people get through the journey with much fewer steps in between getting their money and applying for it. So I'd really say the focus has been on speed of service and KPIs that support that. And then ultimately making sure that we're trimming abandonment, which we are. It's exciting to see. And helping as many people as we can get to the end of that road with as few hurdles as possible.
Makes sense. Ron, do you and Elements have any different metrics, or is that kind of the same as what Justin was just touching on?
Very similar to Justin's. I mean, the pull-through rate is a big, factor for us. I mean, we had a relatively high abandon rate, and going into the new solution that kicks off this week on our consumer and deposit side, that's one of the key things we're going to measure is how far does that drop? I mean, we're very confident it's going to drop, as well as, what is the pull-through rate and the ultimate look to book on the consumer loan side. So very, very similar as Justin.
Cool. So obviously, it's been a partnership between Blend and your teams bring forth this digital lending platform and this solution for your members. How do you see the shifting role of your technology teams in a partnership like this? And when we think of partnering with folks like you, we always think of there are a number of key things that are kind of your secret sauce or competitive advantage that you and your data and technology teams can bring, while Blend focuses on providing this this consistent layer across accessing all of these different financial products. Justin, I'm curious, maybe either looking back over the past 5 years or playing that out over the next 5 years, how do you see the shifting role of your teams in the information organization?
I think for me, it really goes back to something we talked about earlier, and Ron's touched on several times, but it's about having a team that can recognize the experience for what it should be from what it is, and looking at ways to continually iterate and improve on the efficiencies in those processes. And ultimately, I think there's a lot of symmetry between those efficiencies and the end user and employee experience using technology. So really having a team that can see that this isn't quite as good as it should be, and why, and then starting to formulate solutions to those hurdles and problems and make it a better experience for employees and our applicants and members, that they're really thinking about the experience layer in everything they do. And I think that's a changing role for IT, especially to be thinking at that level about the experience of using technology and how it could be simpler and easier and more efficient. But I definitely think that that's a shift that I've seen and expect in my team, that they're thinking about that experience a lot and being hyper-focused on delivering excellent service through our technology.
That's really exciting. Zooming in, when you think about 2021, which is just around the corner, what are your key priorities for delivering on member experience and growing member loyalty?
So I think we spent a considerable amount of time and effort in 2020 putting in place what I think are some really compelling and exciting technologies. I'm excited to build on that momentum next year and start to see the business outcomes and scale for us be realized from those investments, and ultimately see our member satisfaction and other things increase because the experience is so much better, and iterating on that and polishing up where we can. But for me, 2021, I'm excited to build on the momentum we started this year and start to see some of those business outcomes be realized that we set out to accomplish this year.
Super exciting. I think it's great that it's just around the corner. It sounds like what you and the team have done have set up a really strong foundation to realize those. Ron, what does that look like for you looking at 2021?
I think for 2021, we're going to take a lot of what we learned in 2020. We also had some big initiatives that are just coming to fruition towards the latter half of this year that we're excited to see how they play out. I mean, the unified experience, that we've worked with Blend on the consumer deposit and mortgage side is something that we're very interested to see what it does in terms of sales volume, in terms of member experience, as well as what can we modify and add to it to even make it better. The changes that we've incorporated with how we communicate with our members, in this new reality, we don't know what this new reality is going to look like. And, it's going to be exciting to see how things shape up in the industry. It's still too early to tell, but, we're all going to have to be nimble enough to adapt to it.
That's right. From where you stand right now, knowing the uncertainties of the future, what's top of your wish list, Ron? If you could have anything either on experience side or technology side or somewhere in between, what is that one killer capability that you wish you had? The capability that I think is around the corner, but we don't have at this point,
is that ability to offer multiple products and pre-approved products through the application process. To me, that's a game changer. I mean, if we can take the information that a member is providing us, for a particular loan request or deposit account, and through artificial intelligence or whatever rules, identify other opportunities and be able to pre-approve them, I think is very powerful. So, if we ever get to that point, or when we get to that point, I think that's going to be very exciting.
I agree. And I'm going to take that opportunity to plug a little bit what my teammate Evan's going to be talking about in just a little bit. That reality is just around the corner, where we are going to be able to take advantage of all of that consumer data and pre-qualify across the portfolio of products. So excited to bring that to light in 2021. I'm getting pinged right now to move to the Q&A session, so let's go ahead and do that. Caitlin, anything you want me to be doing right now for Q&A? All right, well, while we're figuring that out, Justin, I'm going to turn it back to you. I want to hear a little bit more about your wish list. Good to get a point of view from Ron. I'm curious what that looks like for you, what that looks like for UCCU.
Yeah, I think actually I'm surprised Ron. I felt like maybe Ron had access to a notebook I have here, but it's the same stuff. I mean, we're really excited about what we've done so far, but really taking it to the next level. I think pre-approvals, things like a My Offers, type component to these things that are really, again, contextual to the applicant at that moment. I like, the ability to bundle, I think, is going to be a critical thing for us. If someone is even applying for, say, a checking account online and showing they're pre-qualified for one of our credit cards or a personal loan at the same time, and really not having to go fill out a separate application for that new product, but being able to use all the data we already collected to do that, I think will be a critical capability and something that I wish we could do today.
I agree. I think that opportunity is huge, and I'm shy to refer to anything as a silver bullet, but when it comes to growing loyalty and growing lifetime values as well, it feels like that is certainly top of the list. We've got a couple questions from the audience now. Justin, I'll start with you here. What advice would you give another credit union or bank who's just starting their journey with Blend?
I think for me, I would just say be hyper focused on that ultimate outcome you're wanting to achieve, or those outcomes you want to achieve, and make sure you're getting along the way what you need to achieve that. I think the big thing for us was we understood our why really well. We knew why we were doing this and what outcomes we wanted to achieve, and I'm excited to say I think we're starting to achieve those all, to some degree already, and it's exciting to see. But I think that's important in the project process is not being afraid to just speak up if you're in the project and say, hey, we're doing this because we're wanting to achieve X, and does this experience help us do that? And if not, what do we need to change in this workflow or this back end process? And the other thing I would say is I wouldn't underestimate the changes to the back end processes that the front end might impose on your teams. So anyway, that would be my thoughts.
Cool. Ron, this one for you. What do you think that we can learn from some of the tech giants that are outside of the financial services space, the Netflixes or the Amazons, as it pertains to great customer or great member experience?
I think one thing they do exceptionally well is personalization. So they've taken all of this data from what you watch, what you spend, and they've personalized it where it's not like somebody throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. So, I mean, I think we could learn a great deal in terms of how to take the data we have today and make sure it's pertinent to that individual member, versus, just blanketing them with multiple different messages, which some of them may not apply.
What has been the barrier to getting there historically, that degree of personalized experience?
You have to have a robust data warehouse, and you have to have the people that are capable of putting that data in a usable format, and then a system in place that will be able to pull from that. So you're able to do that, and it sounds easier than what it really is. I mean, it's actually very complex, and it takes resources, and it takes capital. I mean, it takes money, investment.
Totally. I think that it's equal part gathering the data, storing and synthesizing the data, and then actually being able to surface that data into a customer experience that makes sense for the person that's interacting with that product.
Alden, I'd add one more thing. I was going to say, I think it's about enriching that data with maybe other data sources, right? And it's not necessarily about just the data you have, but what other data might be available to enrich that even further anyway. But I agree. I think data is the hurdle.
And more about that, Justin. What type of data would you want to see used for enriching the existing data that you may already have on hand with your members?
Well, I mean, I think like trade line information would be really interesting, right? That whether you have that from an existing loan app or not, being able to get some trade line information about what they have elsewhere. And maybe there's other ways to collect that data, but I think that certainly there's some blind spots if all you're using is your own data. Maybe you can use account histories to try and do data discovery on where they're making payments elsewhere, other things. But like Ron said, starting to aggregate that data and make it meaningful and useful, and knowing what things should trigger which advertisements to which people at what time, those are some real challenges, I think. But I think part of it too is just having more data than what you have. I think you need some more sources.
I think that's right. Another question from the audience that I think actually builds on this nicely. Outside of platforms like Blend, what other areas of digital transformation are you looking at, whether it's DevOps or other sort of infrastructure overhauls? I'm curious, how are you guys thinking about the investments that you're going to be making over the next 3 years that supports this transformation and this evolution to more and more personalized experiences? Ron, I'll kick that one to you.
We have made and continue to make additional investments in our business intelligence group, and they're the folks responsible for mining the warehouse and setting up the rules and putting it in a usable format for the rest of the credit union. That's an area that I think that we will continue to invest in and grow and just try to look for new ways to use this data. I mean, it's just such a wealth of data, and investments in systems that enhance the experience. Our whole goal is to make it easy to do business. So, we want it to be easy and simple, because if we don't do that, people will gravitate to those that are.
Totally makes sense. Gentlemen, we're at time. I want to thank you for sitting down with us, and even more important than that, I want to thank you for your partnership. It's been a great journey working with both of you and your teams, and I'm really excited for what's coming next as it pertains to delivering the types of the member experiences that we've talked about here, increasing loyalty. So excited to continue the conversation. And with that, I think we'll transition to the next section. Thanks.
Thanks, Alden. Thanks, Ron.